That's why I posted that horrific David Lee Roth video today. And I just wrote on there, just to avoid a problem, this is the best DLR's ever sounded. He's great.
Yeah, I did see that too, and it was just like, wow.
Ooh, boy. Not gonna. You know who's talking about running down there to see that too?
Oh,
You're not gonna believe this, and I even called him on it. Our friend Omam. He said,
well, he was being serious about it?
Being dead serious, that he wants to plan a trip with him and his friend Kyle and Hannon and whatnot, and go to Vegas to see the DLR Vegas act. I was like, dude, you've got to be kidding me.
Because they think it would be good, or because they just want to see a train wreck in person?
No, other way, because Dave can do no wrong.
Really? I see it. I find that hard to believe, especially as cynical and critical as Omam can be.
That's why I was blown away. I was like, dude, you can't be serious about this. He's like, oh yeah, David, you can't say nothing bad about him.
Really?
Best front man ever. I'm like, yeah, 40 years ago. You know, he ain't the best front man anymore. He's not even the best old front man anymore. I'd say Mick Jagger still kicks his ass.
Yeah, there is some truth to that.
You know, I would say Roger Daltrey still kicks his ass. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, Roger Daltrey still sounds great.
Yeah, and he's what, 113?
He's definitely in his early 70s.
Yeah. I mean, when he's talking about his Geritol, I mean, it's like, Jesus Christ, dude. When are you going to stop?
Well, as long as there's money to be made, I guess, and people still show up in arena-size levels, why stop?
Yeah, well, and that's true. I mean, they just sold out 18,000 seats here, so for the I guess, because it wasn't like the whole Who. It was just 2/4 or whatever.
It's the You know, when I sit back and think about the history of remembering, you know, even as a young person, because, you know, concerts used to be a big deal. I mean, if
Sure.
somebody was coming to town, especially, you know, watching local television in Cleveland, especially with two big venues, the Coliseum and Blossom Music Center.
Sure.
If somebody like the Rolling Stones were coming, or the Who was coming, or somebody like that, there would literally be television commercials.
Oh, of course, yeah.
For it. They're, you know, coming to the Coliseum, September the 5th, you know, the return of the Who, you know, or something like that, or the Rolling Stones are rolling into Cleveland, you know, something. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the big voice guy, and, you know, clips of the concert, and it used to be a big deal, you know, and that was the conversation among all of our friends. It's just like, are you going to go see Led Zeppelin? Zeppelin's coming, man.
And remember, it would be so big, especially if it was a stadium show, that the lead story of the local news would be that show too.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're out here at the stadium where Pink Floyd is loaded in. They're getting ready to bring a sold out show to you here at the Cleveland Stadium. This is more fans than have attended the last 30 Cleveland Indians games combined.
Yeah. Yeah, it used to make the local news and everything, and they would actually have, you know, like a real brief interview with, you know, maybe with Mick Jagger, or maybe with Roger Waters, or maybe with you know, Jimmy Page or something, you know, to kind of hype it all up.
Sure. Now, they still covered in the news saying, "Hey, avoid Cleveland at all costs. The traffic's going to be a bitch." That's what they do now.
Yeah. Well, but I'm getting back to the point here.
Yeah.
You know, when I think of the Who, and this just goes to show you, you know, where my mindset is. All I think about is I believe it was like a Thursday afternoon or a Friday afternoon, watching late afternoon television and watching the news coverage from Cincinnati about the Stampede.
When they all got murdered.
Yeah, I think did 4 people die in that or something? Yeah. Got crushed to death?
Yeah, they got crushed or trampled or something. Because didn't they just open the gates and let everybody run?
Yeah, it was all general admission seating, so it was just like, you know, it was a free-for-all. So as soon as the gates opened, people were rushing.
Right. They just ran in there and just murdered each other so they could be in the front row, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, people got pushed and shoved and fell, and people just trampled right all over them.
People try to push us down.
Exactly. So, I remember watching that, the breaking news, in to talk about the tragedy in Cincinnati.
Pew, 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 pew. Death at the Who concert. Pew, pew, pew.
And I distinctly remember the Rolling Stones. I believe they were on the Start Me Up tour or something like that. This was like 1978 or 1980, somewhere around there.
Right.
And I remember Mick Jagger talking to one of the local news people there about the longevity of the Rolling Stones. And if you think about it, we're talking say 78, the Stones had been around 15 years at that point.
Right.
Think about that, 15 years.
And now it's been 60 years or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And, I distinctly remember Mick Jagger talking about the longevity of the Rolling Stones. And, I remember specifically him making a reference to saying, well, I'm getting older now. He says, I can't imagine doing this much longer. I can't imagine singing the words to Satisfaction past 42 years old.
Right.
And now he's twice that.
Yeah. Now he's 80 years old. He's still singing.
Exactly. So it's funny how things just don't always turn out the way you think they're going to turn out. And, so just to think about this, I'm 55. The Who and the Stones both started the year that I was born.
Right.
And they're still touring.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, when you start doing age numbers, it really gets depressing. Do you realize that Pantera has been broken up longer than they were big?
Yeah. Yeah.
They were big from 90 to 2004. So it's been 15 years later. So they've been defunct longer than they were a big band.
Right.
That's just insane. And when you start doing that math and you start thinking about it, if you dated the start of the Beatles back to, backwards from today, the Beatles would have launched in 2009.
Right.
That doesn't even seem like a long time ago, does it?
Not at all.
But for people that were around then, they probably thought the Beatles had a long career.
What, it lasted, like 8 years?
10 years. 60, like late 69 to what, 80? Other way.
It was 62, right? 62?
Yeah, you're right. Now I'm thinking about it. It's like 61, 62 to 70.
Yeah, so it was like 8 years.
That's it. Wow. They sure wrote a shitload of hits, though.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, again, people remember the first guy to make the step, everybody knows who the first man on the moon was, as the old saying goes.
Do you think if, let's just say it was the Rolling Stones, if the Rolling Stones would have beaten the Beatles to America, do you think the Beatles still would have had 50 hits, or do you think they would have had like 20 hits?
Boy, that's a good question. The thing that makes the Beatles unique is that they were, obviously the talent was there between, Lennon and McCartney. I mean, not that Harrison and Ringo were hacks, but the talent, the songwriting talent, obviously was the chemistry.
Sure.
And it's hard to say. It's hard to say if the record label would have put as much A&R work behind the Beatles, say if the Rolling Stones were the darlings.
Yeah. It is. It's just a weird thought that, the Rolling Stones could have been the Beatles if they would have just gotten their shit together like a year earlier or something.
Yeah, because the Stones were already suffering internal issues with the drugs and the demise of their guitarist.
Yeah.
And things like that. They were having lineup issues and things, so that always kind of slowed them down at the beginning, even though they were obviously a very they were coming up through the ranks and had hits in the 60s, but their big heyday was mostly the 70s.
Right.